Alright, another response video to the evil great text. This is like the third try at this video. Don't like the way it goes. I tried the responding to what he says things, but he was kind of being redundant and stuff. It's really about two issues. The first one being that he's sort of arguing that I'm arguing that knowledge of emotion is the same thing as using emotion or something. I don't even know what he's arguing. The fact that we have senses gives us insight. We are allowed to learn what it's like being conscious by being conscious. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, we have a huge advantage. It's like it's like living in a desert. Okay, you never went swimming. Somebody can tell you about swimming, but it would be a lot more interesting if you actually went swimming. I mean, that would be a lot more informative. So we have this huge advantage that we know what consciousness is. We know what emotions are. We know what pain and suffering is. So we can look at other organisms or other people, and we can speculate about what they're feeling, and that speculation is going to likely be very accurate. And that's all I'm arguing. And he's perverting that into some sort of, well, you have to have emotions to be able to understand, and blah blah. No, well, you could cut off all my emotions tomorrow, okay? Just like some sort of horrible leprosy where I feel nothing at all, no emotions, no physical sensation, and I'd still be able to understand what consciousness is. I'd still know what it is from my experience, from having experienced it. So I just have a huge advantage. Now, some alien came here and they didn't have a regular consciousness that we have. It'd be hard to explain what consciousness is, but we could try to get them to understand that there's these feelings and this good and bad and da-da-da, and we have to explain it. But like I said, just because we are conscious, we are gained huge insight through having the faculty. And so when we look at consciousness in other animals, we can make some determination about the substantialness of their perception, and we can make judgments. And I was simply making the argument that in making those judgments, things like cuteness, things that are programmed into us, our comfort zones, whatever you want to call them, our preferences and prejudices, are not relevant fodder for philosophy. Okay, they're bullshit. They don't mean crap in defining a reality. It's just subjective noise, and if we can eliminate that in making these determinations about what means something in the real world, that's what we should be doing. And so it's just that simple. He wants to turn it into something else. Well, go ahead and try to turn it into something else again, but it's not that fucking complicated. Obviously, we can think and we can feel, and we can do them at different times, and sometimes we do them together. But when you're philosophizing, you're really thinking, you're really manipulating concepts without emoting about them. You're discussing them and trying to convey understanding of them. You're not having an emotional experience. It's just stupid, a significant one at any rate, a meaningful one. Alright, and the second part of the argument is about his contention that he does not say nature has purpose. And I don't know whether he says those exact words. I'm not going through all his old videos. But he certainly implies a perception that there's something about nature that we have an obligation to preserve, that we have some obligation to respect the mechanics of that beast out there, and even its creations. I think he'd be perfectly satisfied if the human race was living on some plain somewhere, scratching its ass and picking bugs out of its hair and doing all the rest of that shit, acting like an animal. He'd be perfectly satisfied that that's accomplishing something, and that's the key word here. Because we can talk about purpose, and purpose implies intent. So let's take that word out of the equation if we agree there's no intent behind the universe. The question to be asked then is the living universe, the living world, the biosphere. The next question to ask is it accomplishing anything? Is it doing anything of useful purpose? And that's where Great Text has concluded that somehow by accident the natural process makes sense, that it's actually doing something worth preserving. Or at least its judgment should supersede our critical judgment if we determine that, man, it's pretty fucked up. It's not running very efficient. It needs some substantial fixing. It's a really out of tune engine. But we can take that to some extreme. I'll post a link to a Cody video, where he makes the argument basically that there's a lot of people just recklessly impose life, presuming that the thing they imposed it on is going to be grateful, like it's some kind of gift, and that sort of underlies the great text perspective. And he also talks as if we should that we have some obligation to respect all kinds of diversity in behavior and doings. And so even if we perceive that it's wrong to impose life on something without asking it first, we'd have no right to say stop doing that. I mean, it really wouldn't make any sense for only half the lemmings to jump off the cliff, kind of an idea. I mean, if human beings decide that, oh, hey, this is stupid, I don't want to play this stupid game, but then the other half are still going to keep maintaining the game, well, then they're not out of the game. Then they can't escape. They're stuck having to be obedient to the judgment of the other people. So in a way, that war or that contest will have to be won or lost through some process. I advocate a substantial majority should make those decisions. Great Text has some sort of fear of any kind of control structure, because he thinks somehow none of these diverse human beings will get out of control, that chaos will somehow find some balance. That's a pile of shit. People will people will define their own purpose, and what they'll define their purpose to be is to steal or take from other people or impose upon them. And that's another key word here, because that's basically what life is. Life was, no one asked me if I wanted to play this stupid asshole game. All right, they imposed it on me. And then they imposed it in a circumstance where they had no fucking capacity to control how I would be programmed and what I would turn out to be. And so they just decided it was a risk they were willing to take, right, with my life, with my existence. And that's sort of the trap we are in. I mean, if we're going to allow people to be aggressively optimistic, well, that can be troublesome for the things that will be implicated by their optimism. And aggressively reproducing and aggressively all this shit gets everybody in fucking trouble. It just doesn't work. I mean, you can't control your population in one town and then let the other towns all overpopulate, because it's going to influence your town. It's going to fuck you over eventually. So that doesn't go anywhere. There has to be control structures. There has to be there's some decision has to be made, and it has to be made through some process, and the best process we have is democracy. So the end. I mean, I just don't see how this is complicated. And he's another one of these people, though, that drags up historical patterns as if they mean something. History is fucking irrelevant to most questions now, because it's a different world. I mean, it's a completely different world. Human beings have made huge advances in their knowledge base. We're not trapped in the same roles that we had to play in the past. It's just idiotic to compare what happened in the past to what will happen in the future. I mean, none of these patterns have to remain patterns, and some of them can't even remain patterns. That's just a practical fact. I've sort of made that point about our violent nature and technology. They can't coexist in the deep future. I don't think they can much coexist in the short-term future, but certainly in the deep future they got no fucking chance. There's going to have to be one of them's going to have to give. Technology or there's going to have to be some kind of control over individual human aberrant behavior. Make the argument about what you do defend, and you do defend the existence of life on Earth. You somehow contrive that it's accomplishing something, and whether you call that purpose or not doesn't really matter. The point is that you validated existence, and you haven't validated with any logic whatsoever.